Discussions. Topics are moved into Blackboard Learn and they're now called forums. And because user data is not moved, only the first message inside of each thread is moved. We'll cover this a little bit more in a second. So these messages are also posted and displayed as generated by anonymous, and we're going to want to change that. The first message in each thread should be edited and removed if it's not appropriate in the new course. And so we're going to take a look at what that looks like. WebCT Vista discussion categories are also not moved in. So in the old system, if you had categories separating them, those don't translate into the new system. In the WebCT Vista system, the discussion description could be used to guide students' responses to topics, and that's not exactly true in the new system. So there's a couple of workarounds that we're going to want to explore. So let's go ahead and take a look at our old system and see how things were. So here, if we went into discussions, we actually had different topics. We could create topics inside, and that could separate out the discussions. We had our discussions. When you went into each one, you could see that the description of each discussion actually remained at the top here, and that could be used as a guide for the students when they are responding. So in the new system, let's see what happened. First off, the discussions go into communications. We're going to click on communications in the course menu, and we're going to come down to discussion board. And here we are. So now we're in the discussion board, and now all of these are now called forums. So these are the forums, and as they migrated in, you first want to make sure that all did migrate in. So you want to make sure that all the discussions that were in your previous course have made it into the new system. And then the next thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to edit the settings for each of these to make sure that they are how you want them to be. So if we click on the action link item for each forum, we're going to click Edit. So once we're in the edit menu, we can see that we have the name. If we need to rename anything, we can. We can come over here and we can modify the description. And one thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to highlight all of this. We're going to want to copy this information, and we're going to use this in just a minute. So we're going to highlight and copy all of this information. So you can highlight it, and you can either use right-click and copy. If you're a PC user, you could use Control-C. If you're a Mac user, you could use Command-C, and we're going to copy this information. So next we want to go down and make sure that if the forum is supposed to be available, showing to students, that we have selected that. If not, we can hide it by saying no. If we want to put a date restriction on it, we can right here. And here's where we get to the forum settings. So how are students going to be looking at this? This is a change from the previous system. So right up here, viewing threads and replies. This is a feature that was not available before. So right up front, standard view means when you pop in, you can take a look at all of the responses and forums. The second option here, where it says participants must create a thread in order to view the other threads in this forum. This means that students must create an original post before they can see other students' posts or replies. So it's just a different workflow. So if you're looking to have somebody make a post before they see what everyone else has said, the second option here is what you would choose. So next, are you going to be grading in this forum? So if you're going to not use any grading, select the first one. If it is to be graded, you want to go ahead and select the grade discussion forum, give it a number of points, and then you can actually grade the individual threads. But in order to use this feature, you have to set it up the right way, and that's allowing students to create their own forums and things like that. So I just want to run through some of the options here with you. Next, you can have a due date which was not in the old system. So now you can set an actual due date, and you can select when that's going to be due. And again, that will also create an item inside of the calendar. If you used a rubric in the previous system, what you can do is you can actually click on Add a Rubric, and you can select a rubric to grade with, or you can create a new one. And so you can still grade using a rubric inside of this system. Also, you can align. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on. And you can subscribe to different threads, getting notifications, and you can create and edit. So are you going to allow anonymous posts? No names on them? Are you going to allow the author to delete their own post? Are you going to allow them to delete posts that have replies to them already, and that'll wipe out the entire thread, or only posts that have no replies to them. So there are some greater options that you have in here that you didn't before. Can an author edit their own published posts? Are we allowed to create new threads inside of a forum? Are you going to allow file attachments inside of this? So these are all options that you can toggle on or off. Allow users to reply with a quote, so you can quote someone else inside of the forum, some other posting that was in there. That's toggled right here. Enforce moderation of posts, which means you have to go in and take a look at what's being said before it actually becomes public. Additional options are allow post tagging, which is an interesting feature that you'll want to explore, and allow members to rate posts. So it's kind of the 1 to 5 Likert scale, and some different options there. So when you've configured all of your options, you'll want to go ahead and say submit, and you'll move on from there. So those are the basic new settings, and if you need to get rid of any of these forums, you can click on the action link item and come down to delete, and if you delete, it's just going to pull it right out of there. Instead, let's go ahead and let's go into open. So right here, once I've opened up a thread, I can see that before, in the previous system, when we went into a discussion, and we moved in, we saw that description carried itself forward, and this could be used to guide the discussion inside of the forum. Well, now that doesn't occur. That description doesn't follow through. So what you're going to want to do, if you were using that to guide the discussions before, you're going to want to go ahead and create a thread. And you could call it instructions or whatever you'd like. And then remember how we copied that description before? Well, now we're going to paste it right in here. So that's how we can just take what we've already done and transfer it straight forward. If we need to change anything, this is where to do it. And then we're going to go ahead and say submit. Okay, in this case, you can now see that I have the instructions, and if a student goes ahead and clicks on this, it's going to bring up this specific thread, and that information will appear right here. So here it is, and then the students will reply and move through in the normal threaded discussions just like they normally would. But for now, let's go ahead and return to the discussion board. So inside of the discussion board, we can see that there are several different threads and things like that have gone on in here. But inside of here, you can see that the author is anonymous. The author is anonymous because when it migrated, none of the user data came over. So in order to change that from anonymous, let's go ahead and click on the thread itself here. We can see that it is created here by anonymous. So we're going to want to edit this to make it no longer from anonymous. And all I really have to do is come in here and activate the edit option and then submit. And in the event that that does not work, that anonymous does not change, what you'll have to do is you'll have to cut and paste and go ahead and create yourself a new thread, and then it will have your username. If the anonymous is something that's not gonna bother you in your course, this is a step that you could potentially skip. If not, you're going to want to go ahead and copy, highlight, and copy the content, delete this, and create a new one. And also for all the threads that come underneath, if they're not relevant to the current section of your course, you're going to want to go ahead and delete them. So you can go ahead and do that by opening it up and then going down and deleting all of the other posts that come in here. And if there are multiple, you can just select them, and then you can delete each one. So if you need to create a new thread inside of your course for this semester, go ahead and click on discussion boards. So again, communication and discussion boards, or you can use your breadcrumbs up here. You're going to go to create forum. You're going to enter in your forum name right here. Okay, and then you're going to put in whatever kind of description you want. But remember, in the old system, that description would still display for students when they're inside of the forum, but now it's not going to. So you don't want to put all of your instructions here necessarily. Or if you do, you're going to want to cut and paste them over into an actual thread. Make sure if it needs to be available to students that it is. If you want to hide it, you can say no. You can also take advantage of the time display restrictions. Next, let's look at the forum settings. Again here, go through all the settings as you want and make it happen for your course, gradable if you need it gradable, and make sure you go through each one paying attention because the system has changed. So next we're just going to go ahead and submit here. So now that this form has come into the system, I'm going to swing down. I'm going to go ahead and find it. So here was the form that I created. And then I'm going to want to go inside of this form. So I'm going to want to open it. And once I come into it, I'm going to want to create that thread. And this is where my instructions are going to be. So I'm just going to call it instructions, but you don't need to. It could be welcome or whatever it is. And then, you know, whatever is important to your course right here. So this is where you would put that in. That starts the thread off, and then the students will respond to this thread specifically. And that's where those instructions will live. So when they're inside of the thread, they can open up instructions and be able to continue from there. I hope this helps. Thank you.